there is pretty amazing. So I just turned on the recording button, of
Good.
which I'm going to have to cut off. And I'm sorry, I did not ask you if it was okay if we recorded
Yeah,
this.
it's fine. It's
Thank you
fine.
so much. And because I just hit the record button, I will stop talking about snow in New England.
Yes.
Um, so I really do appreciate your time. And I'm looking forward to the next chapter of my life, whatever that's going to be, because I'm not entirely sure yet. But
Mm.
for this particular exercise, we were asked to interview somebody that could talk a little bit about how treating adolescents versus adults for mental health disorders, substance use disorders, so much different.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that seem fairly obvious about that, but
Yeah.
for someone like me, probably not. So I'd love to ask you, and you can start wherever you'd like to. I read a couple of your blogs, and you have a few things in there about children. I think you have a great line that I just, or actually not a great line, it's a great sentence. And I don't know if you wrote it, but it was about stop telling your kids to, basically look at the same jobs the same way they've lived. Teach your kids to be builders, learners, not to optimize for career paths that may not exist by the time they graduate.
Yeah. Yeah. That wasn't my original thing, but it was alerting people that we're in a whole different world. Yeah.
And we are. Um, but if you don't mind, I'll just, let you take it from here a little bit and just ask you, in your professional experience, what are the biggest differences in treating adolescents versus adults?
Well, one thing is that they're still very much in development. I mean, adults are developing, evolving too, but definitely they're evolving in terms of working through separation and individuation, how
Hmm.
and who do I want to be, and then how do I balance separating at the same time being needing nurturance.
Right.
And so with adolescents, you can't just sort of say how you're feeling because they often A, don't know what they're feeling, or B, don't have the language to put that into words. And so obviously you are observing behavior as much you are as you are dealing with feelings, with expression. So those obvious differences in understanding the developmental stages of adolescence to help you know what their struggles are, even if they may not verbalize them because they don't have the language, they don't have the, verbal ability to describe what they're feeling. They're just trying to discover what am I feeling? What do I want? And it goes all over the place with hormonal influences and peer influences, and now with social media influences. I mean, it's just so many things hitting young people today that I never had to deal with. So that's one difference. The other difference that I,
Can I ask you just a quick question because I just don't want to
yeah.
forget this? When you say it doesn't really help to say how are you feeling, and it's so interesting because I think we all do that. I do it to my kids, and should we not do that? Should we not?
Well, it's not that you don't do it, but if they say things like, I don't know, you know, you could make the mistake of saying, sure, dig deeper. What do you mean? You know, so you can help them express the feelings, but don't expect them to say how you feeling or how's it going, and they just say, okay, how was school? Fine. What are your friends like? Good. Don't take that as they are withdrawing from you, or there may be elements of that, like
Hmm.
your business, but it also may be just they, one, don't know how they feel, two, they don't know how to express that, and
Hmm.
three, they may not want to be all that vulnerable with you if they're at a separation individuation stage. So don't put too much personal meaning on it to take it as I'm a bad therapist, I can't get it out of them, or I'm a bad
Hmm.
parent because they don't want to talk to me. We will sometimes put more meaning on it. That doesn't mean that you don't try to, through other means, understand where they're going, but
Right.
so don't be too quick to put adult values onto somebody, where there may be many reasons why they just say fine.
That's a great line, and that really helps me a lot. Don't put adult values on adolescents. And something that I think that a lot of us, and certainly myself, do. So that's a very helpful line. Thank you.
Yeah. And then often in treatment settings, when parents bring their adolescents to treatment, sometimes parents and caretakers, they're more focused on here's the problem. I'll drop them off and you change them and I'll wait in the waiting room sort of thing. And especially with, well, with all people, but especially with young people, the family sort of work is important, I think, the recognizing that parents have a lot of power and they
Hmm.
may feel they don't, but just by transference and by the fact that they're still dependent on them, the
Yeah.
adolescent may feel like they're independent, but the fact is the parents are paying for food, shelter, rent, transportation, and all of those things. So the adolescent is in this bind of wanting to be independent, be their own person, but at the same time, realistically, are not independent. And it goes the other way. Parents want them to develop, but they also don't want them to develop in a way. They don't leave me sort of thing. And parents are struggling with, I want them to think for themselves, but no, but if they start doing stuff that I don't like, I'm not going to let them think for themselves. I'm going to, think for them. So
Yeah. Interesting.
both parents and the adolescent are in the struggle between dependence and independence and autonomy and control and letting go and keeping close. That it's a thing that both sides are struggling with.
Hmm.
And when parents think, well, here's the problem child, drop them off and fix them, they're part of the problem or part
Yeah.
of the solution, better thought of that way.
So
So,
what's another alternative if I mean, the visualization of a parent dropping off a kid at a counseling session and saying, okay, fix them, but what's the alternative? What's the better way for
well, that's when it's important for all people you work with, but especially with adolescents and families, you have to engage them into treatment.
hmm
The way you do that is what I've talked about before in anything, adults or anybody. The first and most important question is thank you for coming. What's the most important thing you want from coming? Now, a parent might say, fix them. They're the problem child. And the kid may say, get them off my back.
Yeah.
Uh, and though an adolescent might say, well, how can I help you? Thanks for coming. What do you want? I don't know. Well, what would have happened if you didn't come today? Oh, they'd probably nag me. Would that be okay with you? No, I hate their nagging. Well, would that be something you'd be interested in working with me on? How do we stop them nagging you? You see, you're not like tell me about your depression or tell me about your behavior. If anybody comes, you want to view that and reframe that in their mind and your mind as
Yeah.
thank you for coming. You're very motivated.
hmm
I didn't want to come. Well, but you're here. So what would have happened if you didn't come? Will they be yelling at me or they take away my phone? Or would that be okay with you if they take away your phone? Hell no, that's why I'm here. Oh, well, let's work on helping
Yeah.
you keep your phone,
Yeah.
right? And to the
That's a
parent,
that's a again, that's a great way to phrase it. I mean, how do we stop them from nagging you? And then that creates this like we're in this together kind of thing too. And you
yeah, well,
understand me.
yeah, you're in it together with the adolescent and to the parent, fix them. Well, why do you want me to fix them? Well, they yell at me, they don't do what I say. Is that okay with you? Well, no. So what shall we work on helping
You got
you?
to do it both ways.
You got
As
to do it both ways,
yeah.
exactly. And that's why, so you don't just give a lecture about, oh, this is a family system problem and you have to
Yeah.
come. And then so what happens sometimes, well, I'll see the adolescent and then every third session I'll check in with the parents. No, because what I recommend is you have some time with the adolescent working on how's it going with the stop nagging. You wait out the room, adolescent, bring the parent in. How's it going with making them obey you? And then you bring them together and you plan for the next thing. So if you do it the often what people do is they see the adolescent and then they may see the parent every now and again. That gives the wrong message that the parent sort of is dropping off the problem child. And the problem with that is you don't have real-time information on how things are going. So the adolescent comes in and you say, "How's it going?" "Fine." What's happening at home?" "Nothing." "What do you want to talk about?" "I don't care." And so you're doing all the work in trying to get them involved versus how's the nagging going? Was it every day this week or less or whatever? "Oh, it was still every day." "Oh, well, so well, how come?" "I didn't do anything." Well, when did so you talk to them and then you say, "Well, I better bring your family, better bring your mother in." Um, and you see them first, and you say, "How's it going?" They say, "Horrible." "What happened?" And then you bring them together and say, "Oh, well, Johnny said he didn't do anything." "Well, no, but this is what he did. I started nagging." "Oh, Johnny, you remember that? You did that?" "Yeah, I did that." "Well, I thought you were trying to get her to nag you less." Um, that sounds like the perfect behavior to get them to nag you more. Are you still wanting to? Are we still working on getting them to nag you less, or are we
And the
working?
parents there, though, when you're saying that,
The
right?
parents are
Yeah.
saying that.
Yeah.
But then the parents just say, "Well, what happened when you tried to get him to obey you?" "Well, I yelled at him and then I put him in his room." "And how did that go for you? Did that work?" "Well, no." So
So
why
you're
would,
siding with both of them in front of each other.
yeah, because you're trying to say that I don't know what the reality is. If I just talk to one side, I don't know what
Right.
parents did. And if I just talk to you, the parent, I don't know what's happened on the other end. And you want to be able to explain the parents' experience, not in terms of why did you do that, but in terms of, "Oh, I thought you were working on less nagging. And that seems to me to behave like that would actually invite more nagging. Are you trying to get more nagging or not nagging? I mean, do whatever you want to do, but I thought we were working on less nagging." And or don't you see how that behavior would bring more nagging? "Well, I don't think it's anything wrong." "Oh, well, mother or father, t tell him why that stirs you up and make you, well, I'm scared that he might get overdose, or I'm scared he might blah, blah, blah." Well, I could see how you could be scared. Can you see how that would be scary to a parent, Johnny? Or driving with somebody who's drunk? I mean,
Yeah.
just have a matter-of-fact conversation,
Right.
not trying to side with anybody, but just trying to help them get what they want. Now, if you don't want them stopping nagging, and there may be some underlying stuff, you know, that they don't because that's how they get attention, all that. But it comes up. You don't make that interpretation. It comes up
Right.
when you say, "Hey, you keep saying we did this last week where you did the same thing." I mean, well, and then you can gradually. So you need some individual time to sort of see where people are, but you also need to do it together so that at the end of the session you say, "Okay, well, what's our plan? Are we still working on no nagging?" "Yes." "Are we still working on, not doing frightening things?" "Yes." "Okay, so what, when that happens next, would be another way that you could react, you know?"
That's tough to ferret out, though. If when I think about that, that if the whole how can we get them to stop nagging you, and talking to the parents and saying, sort of juxtaposing them, not against each other, but
Yeah.
with each other, and not siding with each other, but understanding each other. But when somebody is looking for attention because that's how they get it by acting up, that's tough to ferret out. And that's
Well,
like,
except they will keep doing the same thing. And you
yeah,
say, "I don't get it because this is the same thing. Are you actually, this doesn't look like in the right direction. This like you're in the direction of not minding the nagging, or it keeps going on." And I can't figure that out. Now, because I have worked with lots of people, sometimes I have some hypotheses about this. So what would you think about some kids? And one of my adolescent mentors told me, "You often don't talk about the kid themselves. You say, I've had experience with some young people who the only time they would get attention would be if they were playing up, and other times if they were good, they have an older brother who is kind of never gets attention, and he's just quite and and I and some of these kids that I've worked with, they find that the only time they get attention from parents is when they do something that hurts them or scares
Right.
them, something
Yeah.
like that. And some of the kids I've worked with, that's even better than no attention, you
Yeah.
know. But I don't know if that's going on with you, but I'm just saying that's one
No, no, no.
hypothesis.
I think that's a fascinating subject, actually.
No,
Because
what I'm saying to the client, you say, I don't know if that's your thing, but I'm just
yeah,
giving you some examples of what
yeah.
I've seen when we get into this dilemma that you keep doing stuff that you don't think you want.
Well, this is going to be a weird, not weird, that's the wrong way to say it, but I'm just thinking of a particular example. And this happened years ago. It had nothing to do with counseling or anything. For whatever reason, it stuck with me. It was like literally probably 20 years ago on vacation. And there was this couple, and it appeared that it was probably his second marriage, and they kept dropping their, let's say he was 5, I have no idea, son off at daycare, and he stayed there all day long. And I would drop off my kids to do some arts and crafts, and this little kid would run up and just like literally like crave my presence and clearly didn't know me.
Yeah,
And I looked at one of the people working there and said the poor kid is in daycare all day long.
yeah,
And when his parents pick him up, he's struggling to get their attention and they don't want to give it to him. And I said, and I probably shouldn't have, but I did, to the parents one day, I was like, he's such a lovely, lovely boy. And the father said, oh, you don't have to live with him. What do you like? That is heartbreaking to me. And I realized I just switched gears completely.
yeah. No, it's fine. Yeah.
Um, and if I'm getting sidebarred, please let me know. But then what do you do? Because that's a whole different situation, right?
Yeah, but if they had brought that kid to treatment, you would say, first, parents, what do you want? Well, make him behave. And
Hmm.
to the kid, what do you want? I don't know, they made me come. Well, what would have happened if you didn't? I mean, what would have happened if
It's
you
the
didn't?
same thing. Okay.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
same sort of thing. Well, I want to have my toy or whatever it is. Well, how do we work on helping you keep your toy and not be
Hmm.
from you? But you've got to start where the person is at, which is true for all clients. But because that's how, one, you engage them, and two, that's how you keep them accountable to doing the work
Yeah, that's a good point.
because it's outcome oriented. It's like if you're not getting what you want, well, let's figure out.
Yeah. So what is your outcome? What is your desired outcome? Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are some things that you've seen with adolescents? I mean, because they do run the gambit, and it's always very tempting in this day and age to say, social media has just been probably the biggest impact by a long shot for adolescents. And I don't know if you agree with this or not agree with this, but it does strike me that sometimes people who did not grow up with social media don't necessarily really understand that. Even though I think that, when we grow up, insecurity is insecurity, and being, sensitive and emotional, it now it's just a varying degree of that. And so maybe it's not as different as I think it is, but what is your opinion on social media and adolescence?
Well, I mean, I think the developmental needs are the same for peer acceptance and for testing who you are in relationship to your peers. So the dynamics can all be the same, but I think the avenue by which you got that social media just bombards you that with much more quick. So if
Yeah,
if you have insecurities about whether you're likable, then you get very easily get sucked into how many likes did I get for and
yeah,
what do I have to
yeah,
do to get more attention and more likes and but in the old days, we all wanted to be liked, but the way you would get that done would be at a slower pace. Do I have
right.
the last one picked on the team, and do I have any friends, or does anybody come to me? But that's a sort of much slower pace and instant. I posted something, how many likes did I get? And all that happens in 30 seconds.
Yeah, so I'm good or I'm bad.
Yeah. So on, and I didn't get any views or any likes, so I'm mad, I'm bad.
Yeah. So I'm gonna
Oh,
go out and I'm
and
gonna go out
then,
and buy my likes.
yeah, and then well, that too. But then here's this person who got 10,000 likes. Oh, they were in a bikini. Oh, okay, that's what I got to do.
Yeah, yeah,
They did some outrageous thing. That's what I got to do. So the feedback loop is
yeah.
way too fast to process, and introduces you to things that you wouldn't even know existed.
That is true.
Mm.
Yes.
So that can be good or bad. You can be inspired by, wow, here's a young kid playing the violin, but it can also be, here's a young kid who blew up somebody's car, and that got them attention.
Yeah. How do you think, how can we use social media? And I guess I think about this because, um, well, it's clearly not going away, right? And it's like it's everything evolves, technology evolves, and this is just the next technology evolution. And then we can throw AI in there, but I don't know if you have any opinions on that. And I'm actually secretly really sick of the term AI because there's nothing artificial about it. It's just aggregating
Yeah.
intelligence and then putting it together. But how do you think we can use the technology platforms today and the applications to really help and get through to adolescents? Because it is a massive differentiation and
Yeah.
certainly a massive differentiation between what they know and
Yeah.
what I kind of don't know.
Yeah. Well, firstly, I don't feel expert on this because I haven't lived through that age with clients, but I do have some opinions. And
Heck
one,
yeah.
the negative one first is, especially for kids under 5, or whatever age the experts say, it should really be no screens or really trying. So don't use screens as a babysitter. You see this all the time that a kid's crying and they're in the supermarket and they hand them the thing to quiet,
Yeah.
you know. And then for older kids, for adolescents, um, I think if I were to think about this, because it's not realistic, it wasn't the same when I had kids anyway, but I would think that you'd want to try to engage your adolescent in a family. There could be, I'm just making this up, there could be a family tradition that, hey, let's everybody share what one thing on social media today um, that really inspired you, that you really got an idea about how to be more creative, that brought you a laugh. You could make a category. Tonight we're going to
Yeah.
share everything that made
That's
us
a
laugh.
great
Tonight
idea.
we're going to share everything that just blew your mind in terms of creativity. And there are so many things. I mean, I've seen, people playing music in ways that I would never have thought of. And then tonight we're going to share one person you heard who gave something that was inspiring to you. And I mean, I've been introduced to people I would never heard of, but in 45 seconds they give you a whole view on something.
Yeah.
There are whole categories of things that you could say, instead of family summer saying, let's share how our day went. You, you know,
That's a
so,
great idea.
so you're really then saying there's a lot of good things on here and a
Yeah.
lot of good things we can talk about. And then you could say, let's share something that you were grossed out about or that you think was wrong that you saw
I was
on.
going to ask you that, and that's okay to do too.
Yeah, because you want to see what their sensibilities are. And if
Yes.
if they say, "Oh, there's nothing bad, everything was fine," really? Well, let me show you what grossed me out, today that I think is just wrong. Um, and here's one, or something. So there's enough bad things that
Right. For
you
sure.
can start shape. Well, this is the value in our family about what's good or bad.
And since our natural propensity or it is to, at least at this age, is to um want to kind of be the adult saying, oh God, social media, social media, social media. And I love those ideas. If we're talking about something that, well, what did you hear that grossed you out or was wrong, and they start bringing it up, what is your advice for a counselor or a parent to not do. In other words, then I can see us jumping on the bandwagon. I know, isn't that awful? This is why social media is so awful.
Yeah, no, no. I mean, I think in any counseling situation, you never want to have a strong reaction to anything.
Yeah, yeah,
It's always curiosity about what's that for the person, not validation of your feelings. Or
yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you.
this is about them, not about you. It's you helping them to know them, not them fitting in with your view of the world.
Right.
So it's always now that doesn't mean you can't express an opinion, but you do that very carefully because you don't want to shape them to be in compliance with you. That's not your that's not the goal.
Yeah. And I guess you're taking away their their authenticity, their, trying to
Yeah,
validate their own feelings. If someone's jumping in to say, "Oh gosh," I mean, even though it feels like it's sort of maybe the right thing to do because whatever happened that was wrong, and some of them can be pretty bad on some of the things that go wrong on social media.
yeah.
And you feel like you're validating that wrongness, you can come off sounding like you're sort of ostracizing somebody.
Yeah, yeah, and you're sort of siding with something that you don't know what their belief system is yet
Yeah,
about.
good point.
And that's what you learn from psychoanalysis. I mean, I had 5 years of psychoanalysis on the couch where you don't even see the analyst, right? They're behind you. And the reason for that is you don't want the therapist, you don't, it's very subtle, but you can shape what people are saying by whether you smile or nod or look shocked or whatever. And
Right.
you want it to flow from them. You don't want them to be radaring who what they say is either acceptable or unacceptable or shocking or whatever. So
And that brings up something that you mentioned earlier about parents, but also counselors and a lot of people in our lives, particularly as we're adolescents, is the power angle. And I think sometimes as parents we don't really realize we have that power angle, but for certain, for sure as a counselor, we have power angles. How do you look at the power angle and be aware of it? Because I have to think that's a big one with adolescents.
yeah, well, I mean, that's the importance of concepts that don't get taught enough, I think, about transference and countertransference. You understand, do you have an understanding about transference and countertransference?
I do. I think it is sometimes so I don't want to say vague. I do. And I think it correct me if I'm wrong, but it's basically I transfer my beliefs on you. And then we transfer our own beliefs on each other inadvertently.
Yeah, so that's the direction, but just to be more specific, what the client may have transference with you. So you might look like somebody that they remind you of, or because you're
Mm,
an authority figure and they have issues with authority figures, they transfer onto you feelings that may not have anything directly with you in who you are, but this says this meeting has been upgraded by the host, and
I,
now.
I I had to pay for another 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, you could have told me we could have used my Zoom. I have a don't have a limit because I pay for the more time. But anyway, so they transfer on to you things that don't have anything with you, but you can learn what's going on for them if they have a reaction to something you said, or if you might just frown for a second and that evokes for them memories of their parents who frowned and they put onto you that you're severely disapproving them when you weren't even thinking about disapproving them. So
Mhm.
they're transferring onto you feelings that belong to somebody else. Countertransference is when you transfer onto them feelings that don't belong to them. So they might even say something that reminds you of what your kid or somebody else said to you that made you angry. And if you're not in touch with your own issues, then you can transfer to them and interface with them as if they were somebody else.
Right.
Or another countertransference thing is if they, if you have a client who's attractive and you've just gone through a divorce and you're wanting to have love, and then, this was what happens when therapists violate their boundaries
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
so they're transferring onto the client feelings that the client's not even maybe wanting. But it can get complicated
Oh, yeah.
if the client does want love and then you want, that's when bad things happen.
Yeah.
But
Ethics get involved.
yeah, so yeah, so that was in relation to what was your
Well, it was
question?
a question about the power angle, but I think the other thing that you just illustrated literally is with countertransference and transference, you create such a tangled web that shouldn't have existed to begin with.
Yeah,
And so you create this, kind of potholed filled path
yeah.
that was not necessary, and that's got to derail the whole thing at one point, I would imagine.
Yeah, so the solution to that is that anybody who does counseling or therapy has to pay attention to their own issues and ideally be a whole person who all they need from the client is payment for service.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you need adoration from the client or you want them to think you're a great therapist or whatever, you're not going to be able to handle if they get angry or something.
Right.
Um,
But what if, I mean, because we are all creatures of emotions. When you say pay attention, what do we paying attention to?
Well,
And
you pay attention to your own reactions, and that's why um, I think David, the guy who died, who was always big into supervision. But anyway, that's where the importance of supervision can come from. So somebody you can go to say, "Oh, the client said this. I had an impulse. I didn't say it, but I'd impulse to blah blah blah, or I felt this.
yeah.
I think I know what that's about, but I'm not sure. Here's the case. Help me figure, So in other words, who nurtures the nurturer? Who counsels the counselor? Who
Hmm.
helps the helper? So even if you don't have that formal supervision, you really need to be looking at what are my issues, and that's why you have to do your own personal work. And that's why there are some good therapists and there's some bad therapists, because sometimes therapists use clients not in a vicious way, but can use their clients for their own needs.
I think you just said a word that really hit home, and that was impulse.
Mm.
And so it's while doing counseling, if an impulse happens, and of course, I mean, I absolutely do have impulses. I absolutely do say things. Um, uh, but I think the thing is that pay attention to, is this an impulse or is this, a intended thought? And if
Yeah.
it's an impulse, it's probably better not to say it or do it, even
Yeah.
if it's not
But
ill-intended.
even if it goes wrong sideways a bit, you can use that in the process. Oh, I said that and I noticed you really got angry at that.
Yeah.
Firstly, I'm not wanting to hurt you, but the fact that it is, let's explore what I said and how you experienced that, and I'll think about why I said that and share with you. So nothing goes wrong because it's all grist for the mill. So
Right.
in other words, don't be too worried about trying to be perfect.
Right.
But you do have to have just like if you're going to be a plumber, you have to have a certain level of understanding about how to be a plumber. You wouldn't be
Hmm.
a plumber without any training. But even if you're a trained plumber, things might go wrong
Yeah.
sometimes. So
Yeah.
you don't have to be perfect, but you have to have a threshold level of skill that you don't use clients for your own purposes and that you can be fully present and hear things even if they're hard to hear.
Well, and I think you also just helped me understand too about the power thing, which is if things aren't going to go perfectly always, but I don't know if the word apologize is the right way, but it probably is apologizing, acknowledging, being humble, and saying, that looked like that upset you.
Yeah.
did I do something? I don't know if I should say did I do something wrong,
Well,
but that
how can
happened.
we learn from what just happened? What
Yeah,
can I
yeah.
learn
Okay.
from it? What can you learn?
Hmm.
Because I learn from you say, because I often learn from your experience, and
Right.
hopefully you're learning from my experience. But we're both people of goodwill, and it went sideways there. So what can we learn about that? That
Yeah.
will be helpful to you and maybe me too.
And that automatically also does break down the power ba barrier too.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. It's not
Okay.
like, oh, you had the reaction. I didn't mean anything. What's that about you? You must have some
Hmm.
issue. I mean, that's putting it onto them.
So, would you say then I've used more time than I told you I would, so I apologize.
It's not a problem. In fact, if possible, I'd like to get the recording because I'll use this
Totally.
to
Yeah.
write a tips and topics in the future.
Yes. I mean, and I can only hope I can figure out how to get the recording out of Zoom and into someplace else. But yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Um, oh darn, I just thought of I forgot what I just wanted to say.
I know. I hate that.
Well,
Yes.
I think it was something along the lines of we have, I guess I just say we all, but there's a tendency as we become bad way to say it, it's the only way that's coming out of my mind, senior in our field,
Mhm.
that we are sort of, I don't want to say experts, and I know we're not supposed to be the expert of someone's life, and I think that's one of your big lines is you are not the expert of someone's life, but we are supposed to, um, you know, know what we're doing, feel confident. How do
Yeah.
we, and in the day job I do, that's actually very important. But how do we try to walk that line of confidence, knowledge, but without coming off, particularly to an adolescent or anyone,
Yeah.
as a either know-it-all or, yeah, well,
Yeah.
you see, I understand that.
Yeah,
And get,
I know your question. Scott Miller really, do you know Scott Miller's
I
work?
do.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Scott Miller really has the antidote to that, and that is real-time feedback at every session and creating an environment of feedback. And his research has found that sometimes the people who are best are the interns who don't know anything. And the people who are worse are the people who hear 5 seconds of a story. Oh, I know what's going on here. Been there,
Yeah.
done that,
Yeah.
had 20 clients just like that, and they already start operating like they know you and what the situation is. And they may be 90% times right because they're so experienced. But even if they're exactly right, you don't help that person by just saying, "Oh, I got it. Here's what you got to do. Parents, you
Yeah.
need to set more limits. Child, you need to." You may be right, but it's not, as I've said before, the trick, or David Treadway, a family therapist, said the trick is not to have the light bulb go off in your head, it's to
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
light
Yep.
bulb.
Yep.
So the just therapist's job is to help evoke, in motivation interviewing, the change in you, not to be right in diagnosis and assessment, and then just to sprout the truth of what should happen. So that's why interns who don't know a thing, but are focusing on feedback. Was this session helpful? Were we talking about things that are important to you?
Hmm.
Is this really, are you getting what you want? That feedback is important. So if you're very experienced and you get somebody who says, we started talking about stuff that didn't make sense to me, an intern is more likely to stick with the client because they don't know what they're doing. So they often stick with the client better and they get better outcomes in real time sometimes than experienced people.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you use that light bulb example, and I can't remember when it was in the 6.5 years that I've been reading your things, but it was so um poignant that we want the light bulb to go off in their head, not ours. And I can't remember where, but it's really poignant because when that light bulb goes off in their head, not ours, that creates their autonomy and their belief and their acknowledgement.
That's
That's a great. I actually just drew a picture of a light bulb very badly, but I drew one.
yeah.
Um, well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would recommend? And I also neglected to tell you that is it okay if I share this video with the class because we're supposed to be sharing the video of the interview. So
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
apologies for not addressing that in the beginning.
No, it's no problem. I mean, it gets my teaching juices going, but not enough to come out of retirement. So,
Well, you're I will say this again when we had to not had to, but when we watched one of your YouTubes, and this is when you came out and talked about Crocodile Dundee and being Chinese in Australia, and it was you're a very, very naturally good teacher, and there's not a lot of people who are.
yeah.
Um, but so thank you very much. And there's a lot of different ways to teach, right?
Yep, yep. And I'm glad that, we're passing on to the next generation
Exactly.
and things.
Exactly.
So that's all good for everybody. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And I will send you a copy of this. And I really appreciate your time. And I apologize for being a little bit late and running you over time.
No problem. So all the best in your career. Keep me posted on what you end up doing.
I will. And I've really enjoyed talking to you over the last couple of years. It has been a giant highlight of my 6.5 years in education.
Wonderful. Okay, thanks, Delilah. All the
Talk to you
best.
later. Bye.
Bye-bye.